Welcome to Procurement Says No, episode 37. Yes!
Woohoo!
Oh, yes. 37 episodes of fun and delight if you're a procurement person, or even if you're not a procurement person. And all those other things we do as well, like Ask Rich and Ed and TikTok and that.
All 60 of them.
Lots and lots of episodes for you to enjoy. We are on Spotify, we are on Amazon Music, we are on Apple Podcasts, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, all the other way around, and of course the Alchemy Network, where I was talking a couple of weeks ago on there about geopolitical things, whilst you were on swanning around the world as usual, Ed.
I was being geopolitical.
Very good. And we're on TikTok, which we said we'd never do. And you can buy a T-shirt from us on eBay, or just get in touch with us. And we've got a website, and we've got a blog, which is on the website. And we've got a newsletter.
Yeah, not written by ChatGPT.
No.
Still written by us by hand with quill pens.
So subscribe today. And we've been told that we've got to tell you about what's going to come up on the episode before we do the episode. So we're going to do that now. So it's going to be the news. We're going to have lots of news about exciting things. And then we're going to have a special duper duper super duper super duper 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 guest star, which is Dr. John Glen from Cranfield and CIPS, who's going to be talking all about economy type stuff.
Super duper. And it's very insightful, I think. It's quite interesting if you will have pertinent questions about world trade and austerity and whether we should react with tariffs and so forth. John's the man.
I think there's going to be 2 episodes featuring John as well, because we talked and talked and talked and talked. So there you go. That's what's coming up on Procurement Says No, episode 37.
And he's our first doctor.
Ooh. But now it's In the News, brought to you by CIPS, sort of. Over to you, Ben.
Hello, I'm Ben Farrell from CIPS, and here's the news.
So, first of all, I've got some really, really dull stats for you, Ed, on AI.
Yawn.
And according to McKinsey, I just don't get this at all. The workload for procurement is growing, with teams now managing 50% more spend than they did 5 years ago. What? To meet this rising demand, many are employing AI agents to automate repetitive and manual tasks. And this approach could make procurement operations 25 to 40% more efficient. I love the way that they just pull these numbers out of the air. Oh yeah, 25 to 40%, 26 to 38%. Oh no, 25 to 40% more efficient, freeing up teams to concentrate on more strategic activities and blah, 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 which is what we said, isn't it?
Yes.
And partner at McKinsey, Samir Kushalani, has said procurement, get this, Ed, you'll love this, procurement is evolving from a transactional role to a strategic enabler of value. Functions that once focused on cost savings are now shaping enterprise resilience, innovation, and long-term growth. Blah, 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 blah.
I've been in procurement 39 years.
How many?
39 years I've been in procurement. And how many times have I heard that said over those 39 years? Oh, procurement's moving from being transactional to... Oh, goodness gracious.
Shush.
Deary me, what nonsense.
And here's more stats, this time from PR agency Magenta Associates, who have revealed that 66% of UK senior decision makers with B2B purchasing responsibilities are now using tools such as ChatGPT Copilot and Perplexity to find and access potential suppliers. According to a study of 300 UK senior decision makers, 90% of those are using AI tools, trust the recommendations they receive, while 85% have discovered a new supplier through AI-generated response. So this could mean traditional marketing channels are facing declining relevance, and suppliers do need to optimize for AI discoverability.
Again, just...
Not new. According to Magenta Associates, 45% of decision makers have been plucked out of the air, now use AI as one of their main B2B research channels for suppliers, ahead of LinkedIn at 41% and industry publications at 34%. A combined 83% of users report that they always, brackets 40%, or often, brackets 43%, still visit the original websites mentioned in AI responses. So there you go. Brilliant. Made up numbers.
They could have made the 66%, 66.6% to make it 2/3 of the audience.
Yeah. I go for 67.4.
Yeah, I would. I'd just like uneven number.
Sounds more credible. Gartner predicts that the traditional search engine, this is a no shit Sherlock moment, volumes will plummet by 25% in 2026 as AI chatbots replace conventional queries. So there you go. Demographic patterns in the data could also inform targeting strategies, as younger buyers are leading the adoption of AI, surprise, surprise, with 85% of 25 to 34-year-olds using AI tools for supplier research, compared to 33% of 45 to 54-year-olds and just 23% of 55 to 64-year-olds. So there you go. And the CEO of SustainWise says brilliantly, AI is a co-pilot, not an autopilot. Well, the clue's in the name of the Microsoft Copilot AI bot. Boom.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics, Rich.
It's all made up, mate. It's all made up.
And yeah, it's like no shit Sherlock, I think, is your phrase. Yes.
Any news from you, Eduardo?
Yeah, I've got some really interesting news. So, all on a theme, really, about defence and public procurement.
Ooh.
So, apparently, Germany are to simplify their defence procurement, though they already did this back in 22 when Russia went to war with Ukraine. So, they've come up with a new proposal, which is called the Act on Accelerated Procurement for the German Armed Forces. And imagine if that was a German phrase.
It's just put one word, isn't it? One word with 3 million letters, yeah.
The acronym for it is B, small w, big B, big B. So BWBBG, and this was first enacted in 22, and it's been reenacted right through to extending it till 2035. Lots of interesting stuff on this. The Act on Accelerated Planning and Procurement for the German Armed Forces basically says that it can ignore public procurement rules within the EU.
Yay!
The benefit is that things will be done more quickly.
More efficiently and better outcomes. Did I say that out loud? Oh,
They didn't say the better outcomes. They said that it would be faster and the process would be streamlined, and they will be using this to buy weaponry and munitions too, as we're all tooling up across Europe.
they'll be able to build roads faster to Poland and Austria and Switzerland.
You can't say that.
I've been watching GB News.
I've moved on from World War II. Achtung! Achtung! Anyway, the German defence minister has described the proposed amendments as a quantum leap for the country's defence sector, with increased funding and anticipated reductions in bureaucracy.
Hey!
I imagine most European nations will be doing the same. And then at the same time, this was quite interesting. There's been a big corruption scandal in China around the defence industry.
Ooh.
So revenues this is according to somebody or other, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Where peace fits into this, I don't know. But anyway.
Peace, war, peace.
Revenues at China's major state-owned defence companies fell last year as sweeping corruption investigations disrupted arms contracts and slowed procurement. This report and the other one previously, it showed a picture of a Hangzhou, a Type 926 submarine rescue ship. It's interesting because we have a Type 26 ship.
Love a 26 when you're talking defence.
Yeah, so I'm wondering whether they've copied.
Shh.
Anyway, so they've got something called the Anti-Graft Campaign. The campaign reached the upper echelons of the People's Liberation Army, PLA, in 2023, targeting the Rocket Force, the branch responsible for China's missile arsenal. Don't you like that? I work for the Rocket Force. It's like in America, it's now called the Department of War.
Love it. And we know, everybody, don't we, that war is stupid and people are stupid. And war, what is it good for, Ed?
Good for nothing. Say it again.
War.
Right, and then the last one on the public procurement thing. This is dead not exciting. Procurement thresholds are changing. What you need to know for 2026. This is about the Procurement Act in the UK. Public procurement in the UK is evolving, the article says. From January the 1st, 2026, new threshold amounts under the Procurement Act 2023, open brackets, threshold amounts, close brackets, open brackets, amendment, close brackets, regulations 2025. You can't make this stuff up, can you? Even the title is bureaucratic. These changes matter because they determine whether your contract falls under the Procurement Act 2023. Note, the thresholds have moved marginally.
Ooh.
It says, note, the thresholds have fallen. They haven't really. I looked at it and like one threshold for works contracts, it's gone from, old threshold was 5,372,609
The nine's important.
is now 5,193,000. No digits like tens and hundredths in that number. So that's quite interesting. So there is a bit of evolution. They made the numbers simpler.
Brilliant.
What a load of tosh.
What a load of tosh.
Got a little bit more, Rich, if you want it.
Go on then.
We like talking about AI, don't we?
We do.
Apparently, a company in London, a UK-based company called Procure AI, they provide AI native procurement automation solutions. No idea what that is. That's probably P2P then, is it? They've just raised $13 million in seed funding from a variety of angel investors and private equity organizations. And what I loved, because I thought, what the hell do they do? So I had a look at their website. This is their strapline. The world's first AI native procurement automation platform. And then it's got a sub strapline. Augment and simplify the end-to-end procurement process with agentic AI and get more done.
Brilliant.
I'm bamboozled. Maybe it's my age, but I've got no idea what that is. What is it? It's just another procurement platform. And then we know that people aren't really investing in procurement platforms. So, hey ho.
No. It'd be much simpler, wouldn't it, if it was, we're going to create a maize farm and we need seed funding.
How much seed funding do you need?
About 20 acres worth.
Yeah, 10 million. No, I mean, don't mean tons. I mean pounds. 10 million pounds, please. Yeah, very good. And then just to wrap things up, I like CAPS stats.
CAPS, we love it.
They've done a couple of things, one of which supply management return on investment. So this is doing supply management to get better outcomes, really, which is cost reduction and avoidance savings. And it gives you the return on investment for different sectors. So for our finance colleagues, these are all made up numbers because they never accept cost reduction nor cost avoidance. But oil and gas gets a multiple of 16 times on their investment. Financial services, 9.3%. And industrial manufacturing, 5.8%.
Well, there you are.
But nobody buys into those types of savings.
Don't go down to your bottom line.
No. So yeah, that's a wrap, I think.
That's the news. Right, Ed, now it's time for another one of our super duper 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 guest stars. And this time we've got Dr. John Glen. Can you do the honours?
I think, Rich, this is our first doctor. Hurrah! Right, so Dr. John Glen is a visiting fellow at Cranfield University and the chief economist at the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, CIPS, and widely recognised for his expertise in global economics and supply chain resilience. And we're going to test that during this conversation.
Oh, yes.
So John has built a distinguished academic and professional career serving as director of Cranfield's executive MBA scheme between 2002 and 2004 and full-time MBA also. And at Cranfield University has contributed extensively to executive education. He's a regular commentator on UK and global macroeconomics, appearing on BBC Radio and TV. And in his role as chief economist at CIPS, Dr. Glen provides authoritative analysis on global trade, inflation, and supply chain dynamics. Beyond academia and professional economics, Glen has advised a diverse portfolio of clients, including JLR, Sony, EDF, Sport England, and the governments in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And that's Dr. John Glen.
Woohoo! Welcome, John.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We got a lot of big global economy type questions for you, John.
Okay.
And the first one is, how is the big global economy these days?
The big global economy is in a state of what we might describe as turbulence, transition.
Ooh.
Okay, so if we go back to 2015, we had a global economy where geopolitically there was not a lot to worry about. We didn't have wars in Ukraine. We had an underlying tension in the South China Sea between China and Taiwan, but it hadn't come to the surface, as it were. We could bring our goods freely around the world. Nobody really worried about supply chain because the supply chain worked so effectively. Now what we've got is major geopolitical disruptions. We've got the United States, where we don't know where it stands geopolitically, is now moving against a free trade because of the imposition of tariffs. And we've seen an enormous disruption in trans-Pacific trade into the United States, and a reconfiguring of trade. So it's not that, we are seeing less trade. We're seeing a global economy that's not growing as fast. Free trade is good for trade and it's good for growth. If you stop free trade, be it because of wars or geopolitical movements, and here we see tariffs being the big driver there, then what happens is the economy grows more slowly and we don't get as wealthy as quickly as we did. But to that point then, what starts to happen is we see a reconfiguration of global trade. So we're seeing China looking towards Europe a lot more. We're seeing China looking towards intra-Asia trade, so trading within Asia. And then we're seeing a significant amount of trade going from China into South America. So there is reconfiguration. There's Europe then looking at, because in a way, something positive that the president has done, the president of the United States, by saying that Europe should stand on its own feet militarily because of his lack of desire to fund NATO. That's also made Europe look at itself economically. So we're seeing Europe trying to be more self-sustaining, look at more into European trade, and also look into the Far East and other areas where it can trade because of the difficulty trading into North America. So we're in a period of disruption. We're in a period of transition. So what's happening is we have less global trade, less growth, and a reconfiguration of trade. So they're the three big themes, really, that are coming out of where we are in the global economy at the moment.
So India's keeping its head down a bit, do you think, at the moment? Or what's the situation in the Indian subcontinent?
I think what's happened at the moment is India has been driven towards China. And with that, India has been driven towards Russia, perhaps more than it would want to, and really you'd have to have an expert on the geopolitics of India to comment on that. But there's definitely a movement towards China. There's definitely a movement towards that, what we call intra-Asia trade. So rather than India looking west, as it were, towards Europe, it's looking east towards intra-Asia trade.
Do you think, John, that given in the West, economic growth has been very weak, generally speaking, maybe outside the US, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that reconfiguration of the global economy sort of inevitable? Was there a need to do something different?
No, Ed, there was always an evolution of, if you like, relative competitiveness within the global economy. So the emergence of China and the speed of the emergence of China is interesting because essentially what we've had is a Western economy which has had massive monetary injections of money, and we haven't had inflation. And the reason we haven't had inflation is because as the provision of goods and services expanded, we've been able to do that at relatively low cost because our supply chains went into China and China provided those inputs. What we've now seen is China moving upstream and actually saying we're going to go into more value added, more profitable final products. So you're seeing, Chinese EVs into Europe particularly taking a massive part of the market and potentially even greater. And then conversely, you're seeing, VW last week announcing that all their EVs were going to be, that the actual engines were going to be produced in China. So you've got that competitive pulse coming. Now, in free market economics, which perversely the UK and the US and the West have espoused for the last 40 years, the challenge is, step up to the plate and increase your competitiveness and compete with these people, not go for a protectionist solution. But of course, protectionism is popular. When things are tough and we're facing greater competition, it's always easy to point at them, whoever they are, and say, they are the people that are taking away your jobs. They are the people that are taking away your standard of living, and we're going to protect you from them. But you're not protecting you from them. That's not how it works.
I'm just wondering whether low inflation because of imports from lower cost economies, whether that has also reduced interest rates in the Western economies, and therefore that sort of, I suppose, hidden the growth in the economy. So interest rates, cost of capital has been low, people could invest.
Yeah.
In fact, it's all sort of been masked, isn't it, really? If we hadn't been importing, our interest rates would have been higher, our inflation would have been higher.
Yeah.
Would our growth have been, to your point there, even lower?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You've had this enormous manufacturing engine. You've had the procurement profession, which has behaved impeccably in terms of taking advantage of the opportunities that are there. You had the supply chain community, which took the goods from wherever they were to wherever they were needed. And the global economy grew because of it. Now, I think if you want to talk geopolitics at home, part of the problem that we had at home, and now I'm talking about North America and Western Europe, is, 20, 30, 40% of our population did not share in that growth. And so now we're talking about, K-shaped economies where you've got a lot of wealth at the top and very little wealth at the bottom and a shrunk middle class. Okay. And so what we need to look at is how do we make sure that people at the bottom of our income distribution share in the wealth that's being generated, and that's a toughie.
Provided that the world doesn't end, and provided that China doesn't invade Taiwan, what's the outlook generally in the next sort of 12, 18 months?
Yeah.
And I guess there's the East and there's the West, isn't there, which are going to be different?
Yeah, the outlook in the next 12 to 18 months is, more turbulence, more uncertainty, less growth than we would otherwise have. At this point, perversely, I want to defer to my daughter, who's an English graduate and teaches year one primary school teachers. And when I worry about these things, as we discuss what's going on in the world, she keeps telling me, "Don't worry, Dad. These things go in cycles." Okay, and we do go in cycles. But my worry at the moment is the price that we have to pay to get out of this current cycle. And we don't want to be paying the price that we paid 100 years ago to get out of a similar sort of deadlock to which we can draw parallels. So we need to have adults entering the room, and I think there's a sense that that's happening in Europe. I think with much more realism about where we are geopolitically. I think the signs of it happening in North America with a counter presidential narrative being developed, but that's got a long way to go. And then we have to hope the good sense prevails as far as geopolitics and China are concerned. I think that's probably okay. I think Chinese are pragmatic. The wild card there one of the wild cards is Putin. And it looks as if, we're moving towards something being sorted out in Ukraine. So you can see there are signs of sense coming to this chaos. But when you ask me 12 to 18 months, you're being sane to predict that, just wait 18 months, guys, and everything will be rosy in the garden.
So just in terms of your point about grown-ups in the room, Ed, do you want to ask your autocratic question?
So do you think it's time for totalitarian regimes, authoritarian regimes to take over and proper economists
to run it as a business?
You look at it, don't you? And you sometimes think, is capitalism sort of run its course?
Yeah, it's sort of, is liberal democracy good for growth? Discuss, yeah, look, benevolent dictators are pretty short in supply.
Doesn't come in the job description, does it really?
The only one I can think of is Caboose in Oman, and that's a pretty specialist case. And by the way, he also liked the West.
I think from the Communist Party's point of view, we will suffer 5 years, 10 years if it's better for us.
The obvious case there, Ed, is the battle over tariffs between China and Trump. And Trump getting this label of taco. Trump always chickens out, and obviously Xi in China is not encumbered by having to go to an electorate. So he can basically turn around and say, we can go as high as you want and we can play this game for as long as you want because, the Chinese people are used to suffering and we don't have an electorate to deal with.
Can you sum up the UK budget a couple of weeks ago. In one sentence, John, what's the one-liner?
Awful management of the message.
Right.
That's how I'd sum it up. Where did this nonsense start that we started trailing the budget 3 months out?
Yeah.
Just keep your counsel, develop your budget, deliver it on the day, and then explain what it is that you're doing. And if you want to scenario plan, my God, we've got more capability to scenario plan now than we've ever had. Get the propeller heads into the Cabinet Office or the Treasury or wherever you need them. Do all the scenario planning that you want, and then control the message. This government is awful generally at controlling the message.
Yeah.
And the idea that you have a discussion with the population, no,
you're supposed to be in charge. This is what we're doing.
Without trying to be party political, you see all this hoo-ha, and perversely you've got a Labour government that's trying to sort out the public finances, being criticised for putting more money aside, this mending the roof while it's not raining nonsense that they were criticised for. And everybody's coming out because apparently she's misrepresented debt by 4 billion on a debt of nearly 3 trillion. Now, anybody out there who's a finance person would say that's not material. And by the way, if you want to talk in those decimal points, it shows that you've got a sense of humour. Difficult decisions have to be made. It's going to be tough. And we've got to decide as a society, I've said this a number of times in presentations, what kind of society we want. And that means big decisions about tax policy, about income distribution policy, about social services, health, education, the whole gambit, defence. We currently spend more on interest payments on our debt than the whole defence budget, 110 billion. That's crazy. If I started to explain the sort of public finance position now in 3 minutes, everybody who's listening would go to sleep. You can't get to the bit where you actually say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So you have to, I talked to, again, I was working with some delegates in Cranfield, and we talked about, as senior managers inside a business, you have to be the CSO, the Chief Story Officer. You have to develop a narrative that says this is where our business is going. It's important for the government that they control that narrative, that they control where this is going. And that's what builds confidence. That's what builds confidence in their competence. That's what builds confidence in people, to your point, Ed and Richard, making investments when interest rates are low, and believing that the economy is going to go in the right direction, and believing in now to the point in 4 or 5 years that my investment is going to be in place where it's a good thing to do. So I think we need to get to that. So perversely, I think the underlying economics is okay. Just the control of the message was. I mean, six formers could do better.
You wonder about that with the UK government currently, and about, it's not just that, is it? There's loads of leaks, there's loads of plot lines that are released early and discussed too publicly, I think. And then I was just going to ask you, the ONS released their report early, which was so for our overseas listeners, that's the Office for National Statistics. They released a report about the impact of the budget before the budget, which is the first time that's ever happened, I think, in the UK. Do you think that was deliberate?
No, I don't think it was deliberate. I think we have to take it at face value and say that it was, it was just an error. I think the thing you have to remember about the Office of National Statistics is they have been able, across the whole political cycle, to remain detached and, give a fair and honest approach to where they think the government's going. And the other thing is, I saw a government minister speaking this morning, somebody who's is in the Cabinet Office, and he was saying, they had 5 ONS reports in that 6 weeks, 7 weeks, run up to the budget, saying where the UK government, where the UK economy was. So that's why you've got to remain quiet. You're starting to talk about nuances there. that are beyond the ken, beyond the understanding of the public, So keep quiet, develop your story, get your story right, deliver it strongly, deliver strong messages into the economy, show that there's direction, show that there's control, generate confidence. That's what you need to do. And then to the bit about leaks and what have you, you need somebody in there who's sorting the cabinet office out or whatever. Mrs. Thatcher had, I forget his name,
Bernard
Bernard Ingram. Tony Blair had
Campbell.
the Burnley supporter. Yeah. And these guys, they ran a tight ship. This is what we're going to say, and this is how we're going to say it. By the way, if you step out of line, there will be consequences for you. We will do all of our management in the back room. We're not going to do it on the front pages of the newspaper.
Yeah, they need Malcolm Tucker, frankly, don't they?
Absolutely.
There's stuff about Andy Burnham. Oh, there's going to be a leadership challenge from Andy Burnham.
Yeah.
Oh, there's going to be a leadership challenge from Wes Streeting. Oh, it's like, what are you doing? It was like, we talk about unintended consequences, but it's kind of, they were sort of preempting unintended consequences. It was the most bizarre set of things going on.
Yeah.
In any setting, you destroy value by doing that. If you were the leader of a FTSE 50, it's the same story, isn't it? And when I was involved in corporate life, off the board, and it was like everything was choreographed. Everything. You'd meet the investors. It'd be, Ed, when you meet the investors, here's how you're going to speak. When you're sitting at the dinner table, just having a chat, you are not to talk about this. You are to talk about this.
Yeah.
And the same with presentations with your results, the interims and all the rest of it. It's all tightly choreographed. And if you get it wrong, you're fired.
Yeah.
It's sort of that maturity of thinking isn't there. They're just not doing what good corporate governance says you should do.
You've got a government now that, perversely, I support, who had 14 years to think about this. 14 years to get this right. What were they doing?
Yeah. Well, they were fighting amongst themselves. It's dissension amongst the ranks, isn't it? It's just conflicting views publicly broadcast. Again, if I go back to corporate life, I'd sit in the exco. The CEO would say, we're going to debate this issue about something we're going to do, right? And then he would say, if there is a majority that go with a view and you're in the minority, you wholly support it. That's the way it works, yeah? And you harked back to, Thatcher, for example. That was the way it worked, wasn't it? Whatever people think of her, it was like lockdown, we've had a view, we've had a debate, that's it. There's no dissension, there's no publicly talking it down, etc., giving a different viewpoint. You now support that view. And I think that's been, lost at the end of the Conservatives' reign, but now with the current government, they're too publicly, and Burnham was your example earlier, he's not even an MP. How can he be leader?
It's like the Popular People's Front of Judea, isn't it? And the Judean Popular People's Front.
Yeah.
Splitter.
So just on the whole United Nations, G20, COP30, all like rudderless. Are they dead in the water?
No, because I think the issue, the key thing here is that the issues that they are addressing won't go away. So if you've got geopolitical uncertainty that's causing significant migration, if you've got global warming that is causing significant migration, then you have to deal with that. It won't go away. So there will still be people who will be trying to migrate into Europe wherever they come, and Europe has to deal with that. We either have to pay the price of reducing the impact of their environment being degraded and not pollute, or we have to pay the price of accommodating when they do migrate. There are economic forces at play there that don't go away. You've got to deal with the reality of it. And I think there's not enough maturity in facing up to that. I think we got to a place where we were doing it, and now it's sunk back because the reality of that is I have to ask you, and frankly, Ed and Richard, us, to pay more to facilitate this. So I think that the COP talks, the UN, whilst they may be reduced in their influence now, the issues that they were addressing don't go away and will have an impact on us.
I think COP31, either no one will show up or it'll all just be oil companies. It'll be one of the two.
Yeah. And we know at the moment that if you've got any oil under your ground, you want to get it out pretty quickly before the global economy moves against you. So it's not surprising that we've got a drill baby drill president in North America. There's a massive funding that ensures that you get elected on a ticket that's counter to what the global economy actually requires.
So here I am. I'm sitting in a small manufacturing company in the UK. I'm in their procurement department.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for me, John? Bringing it back to procurement.
So, bringing it back to procurement and an individual organisation, it means, I would say, the macroeconomy. The macroeconomy is something you can't control. Yeah, or you have very little influence on unless you're an oil company or whatever. Okay. So you can't influence the macroeconomy, the fundamentals, and you have very little, if no influence on the policy responses to that. So you have to accept the macroeconomy and go for your impact on micro factors. So what are the products that you're producing? How do you generate competitiveness? How do you manage your supply chain? How do you develop your customers? How do you innovate your service? How do you innovate your supply chain? How do you innovate your procurement function? So it's very much concentrate on those micro factors that you can control. And the macro factors will play out and may impact your micro stuff. But again, it's that ability to be agile and to flex your offering so that you can go to where the market's going. So for example, I'm currently working with a large construction company who've been doing a lot of local authority work. The local authority work is slowing down because of pressure on local authority budgets, and they have flexed quite successfully to doing central government work where the funding streams are much more assured. So it's showing that ability to flex and to take your offering to where demand is in the market.
And do you think tariffs are having any impact at all on anybody in the UK at the moment? I mean, I had a stat about only about 8% of businesses trade internationally inbound or outbound in the UK. Is there any impact at all being seen in the procurement profession?
Yeah, I think the key issue there is that what you have seen, particularly SMEs, is in relation to Brexit, is deciding that it's not worth trading with Europe because of the complexity of doing so. You've also seen at an aggregate level, if you look at the freight forwarders and the logistics companies, they've made an enormous amount of money out of customs brokerage. So there is still a lot of work going on, but the customs brokerage, having to pay for somebody to actually facilitate your customs exposure, either on export or import basis, is something that has imposed a significant cost. We're talking billions now on the UK economy and has disproportionately impacted SMEs. So I think that there is an impact there, but I think the other side, if you're exporting beef to the US, almost no impact. We've got a fixed quantity that we're allowed to export, which is the same as what we exported last year. There's a tariff on it, and there's a shortage of beef in North America. So if anything, you're probably making more money.
And I guess there's no real tariffs on services, are there? So given that most of the economy is service-based, other than the sort of movement tariff, I guess you'd call it, it's now almost impossible really to truly go and work in Europe. It's too challenging to navigate. But for lots of other economies, it's not. I do work for Canada, the US, and stuff like that, and it's the same.
That's exactly the agility that I'm talking about. Okay, so you see that for reasons of increased complexity, we can't go, in your case, into Europe. So I just flex and I go somewhere else. Yeah, and that is, that's how economics works. It creates an incentive for you to do something, and away you go. And the agile and successful companies will be able to do that. The issue is, if an economy if a business has overbet on Europe or, overbet on North America and is now being impacted, we see an issue. So for organisations like JLR, irrespective of their recent travails, it is more complex to go into North America, but then you've got to decide, do we look at other markets? It's in Asia, develop those markets, look where the wealth is, go more into India, and sell there. And by the way, is our product so high end in North America, so desirable that they'll pay the tariffs? The tariff on Range Rovers going into China was 100%, but the Chinese had no problem paying the equivalent of $240,000 for a top of the range Range Rover.
For a status symbol, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe it being more expensive makes them want to buy it more.
Well,
how do we stimulate growth in the UK economy then? We just go into luxury goods and put huge tariffs on them.
Ask for huge tariffs on them.
But to Ed's point, if we're producing manufacturing, it is high end. We can't produce cheap and cheerful because
no, we can't. No,
you can go to Portugal, you can go to Spain, you can go to parts of Italy, and you can definitely then go east and get that.
Yeah.
So we've had to move up the value chain. We've had to become more innovative. So if you look at what's left of manufacturing, and I'm slightly older than you two, so in my lifetime, when I was taught economics, manufacturing was 30% of GDP.
Yeah.
Today it's less than 10%. We are a service economy. And of course, this is the problem that the President of the United States doesn't understand. He keeps talking about a deficit in trade with China. His surplus in services with China is off the scale outrageous. It's 3 or 4 times the deficit in trade. But he's not talking about that.
Yeah, because he's still thinking about blue-collar workers building cars in the Rust Belt.
Yes, protecting steel, is a popular policy in North America. But how much steel do they produce?
Just to worry you on the services side, because obviously that's where we've got that advantage, is that I was recently contacted by a Chinese procurement technology platform provider saying, would I be interested in having a conversation about their solution that they've propagated in China, I guess, and now they want to look to Europe to sell it. And I think that's the interesting development in my mind, is that maybe not directly in people, albeit a lot of Chinese people are being educated in the West, is whether ultimately they'll start massively chewing into the services surplus, because they will provide solutions, AI-enabled solutions, and they'll be created more cheaply than they are in the United States or the UK or Germany or wherever.
Absolutely. So, and again, it's the speed at which that will happen. So if you look at manufacturing and look at automotive, the speed at which the Japanese entered the market in the 70s, then you've got the much greater speed with which the South Koreans entered the market, Kia, Hyundai, obviously pronounced incorrectly, and then the speed at which the Chinese are entering the market. So I drive out of Stockport and nearly crashed my car because in a Mercedes dealership, they are selling BYD. And they're not selling BYD.
Wow.
They've got the big Mercedes thing rotating on the top of the dealership, and they've literally got BYD written on the window at the far end. You cannot miss it. So, and again, it's a bit like the challenge you face, Ed. If somebody from China is approaching you to get advice on this solution, on this procurement solution, my best advice to you is get into bed with them. These are the people that are going to be, driving potentially innovations.
Yeah.
And again, that is the challenge that we then have to face. The challenge for us is, how do we develop our own products so that we can meet this competitive challenge? So I teach Marley in Stuttgart. I've taught them for 20 years, who produce pistons and powertrain for automotive. What is their view of Volkswagen, who I assume are one of their biggest customers, taking their EV offering to China? And it's not as if Marley haven't been developing an EV offering. It's just that, the Chinese have developed it incredibly quickly at a very low cost. And so you can see that supply chain going there.
So do you think protectionism would ever work in that circumstance then? Do you think has it ever been a positive force?
So is there an argument for protectionism? So if I'm doing this in an MBA class, the classic argument is what you call an infant industry argument. So you say that, we're South Korea in the 1950s and the 1960s, we're China probably in the 90s and 2000. We're not operating at the scale of Western manufacturing. So what we need is a bit of protection so that we can grow, okay? And then once we've grown and we've become competitive, you take those protection barriers away. Now, there's a big literature in economics about sequencing. How quickly do you do that? And obviously, there's a tendency for the South Korean manufacturers to go to government and say, yeah, I agree that we need to be competitive, but not this year. Just give us another year of protection. So bringing those protectionist barriers down is difficult, and we've seen that in China. Yeah. So yes, for an infant industry, there is potentially an argument. Absolutely no for the United States, or at best, a common external tariff, which is relatively light, where you're creating a European Union trading area, or you want to create an ASEAN trading area, or you want to create NAFTA. Yeah, fair enough. Put a common external tariff on there to try and build that ecosystem.
There's certain areas of the economy you think, well, they probably need to be protected because we would see, say, China or Russia or whoever as a threat. We wouldn't want to rely on them for key components. For instance, defence, steel for defence, aero engines, nuclear power plant for nuclear subs, all that. So we do in electronics in reality, but should be more from domestic governments to create some level of protection for those essential.
Yeah, so you could argue that certain industries are strategic from whatever perspective, strategic economically or strategic from a defence perspective. But the danger is then that leaks over into picking winners and losers. Yeah, I don't think you should go that far in particular industries. The big issue though is about and again the sort of economics I was taught was you potentially control the commanding heights of the economy is what we used to refer it to.
Yeah.
So you talk about industries that were strategic, steel, maybe coal, maybe now telecoms, water, gas, railways, all this sort of stuff, And the argument was that the private sector could run them better, so we privatised them. And in many cases, the private sector has shown that it can't run them better, or that the incentives that are set are not appropriate to get the outcomes that we want. There's another PhD thesis. Yeah, there is some argument that you should control certain industries, but the danger is that it goes too far. And the danger is, of course, that you don't run those industries efficiently. But as my economic professors used to tell me in the early 80s, there was no privatised industry that was losing money at the point of privatisation, because who'd buy a loss-making industry? So, if we had to tidy them up so that we wanted to privatise them, then presumably we could run them better.
And on that bombshell, so let's call that the end of part 1, John. Would you come back again and do a part 2?
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure. Anytime.
Right, yeah, we will do that. We will see you again next week for some more of the same.
Thank you.
So thanks again, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Take care, guys.
Fantastic. And that's it for this episode with super duper duper guest star John Glen. He'll be back next time, as will me and Ed. Goodbye, everybody.
Ta-ra all. Bye-bye.
Perfect.
What you need to do, John, is improve your LinkedIn presence.
My LinkedIn presence is getting all the wrong type of people looking at it.
So I went to New York recently on a short vacation. I was deliberately really careful on social media for months leading up to that trip.
Yeah.
Now that I've come back, I think, well, shit, I'm not going to go there again. So now I've started posting lots of stuff about the Orange Man.
Yeah. Well, I've said one or two things on TV and radio interviews that probably they would disagree with. Yeah, we were discussing it yesterday with a friend. He said, just bring a burner phone. Don't bring your normal phone. And then they can't.
No.
Good job you take a lighthearted approach to this. We'd all be slitting our throats otherwise.
It's all going to end. It doesn't matter what the economy is like. We're all going to die.
Yeah, that's it. We're doomed.